This reminds me of a quote that you're famous for saying, which is, a person won't change unless the pain of changing is less painful than what it is that they're going through. A lot of the people I've met in my life that are more interesting people who have stories, who have gone through the shit, it almost seems like the worse their childhood was, they've got more to their story, to put it in a certain way. I think the harder somebody's life is, if they pay attention to it in the right way, the quicker they grow.
Oh, absolutely. It just gives you a profound sense of responsibility and duty. Sometimes people have old souls, but sometimes they're forced into their old soul kind of nature from a young age. I think when it comes to childhood, I had a pretty overall good childhood. I think that everyone kind of has weirdness going on sometimes in that kind of dynamic and stuff like that. But when you look back on all those experiences, you would never have it any other way. No matter how painful or how horrible that it was, it has made you who you are no matter what. It has made you that resilient, strong person who had to put themselves out there, or who had to get stuff done for your greater good. Nobody wants pain, but it shapes us into who we are, and it makes us us.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Taking Action. I am your host, Michael Allen. Today I'm joined with my co-host, Ryan Peaton, as well as our guest, Kristen Robinson. Kristen is a clairvoyant medium as well as an expert in astrology. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So we've had a brief coffee and we've had an excellent chat. So we're going to reiterate some of those things that we talked about before.
Absolutely.
And before we do, can you tell us a little bit about how you discovered that you were a clairvoyant?
Absolutely, yeah. I was just a small child, I guess, and basically what would happen is I would wake up in the middle of the night and they would be at the end of my bed. A very scary moment for me. I'm trying to go back into the memory of it and stuff, but it started to amplify when I started to lose my own loved ones. So every time that one of my family members would pass away, it would get stronger and stronger and stronger. So the first time that it kind of happened, my great-grandmother died, and then she kind of came to the end of my bed and she started to move all of my bed sheets in the middle of the night, and my anxiety kind of just came over me, because it does something weird to your heart, right?
So your bed sheets physically moved?
They physically moved, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. So I never told anybody besides my mom. I told her because I was just kind of dealing with some things internally. Your heart just kind of, you're sweating, trying to find a logical explanation for this to kind of make sense to the human mind, right? And I just told my mom, and then she was like, okay, whatever. And then I kind of went into my teenage years and stuff, and then I wanted nothing to do with it. It went away for a little while, and then more people would die or pass away, sorry. And then it would just get a little bit stronger. So I had a big fear of the dark until I was about 21. So I slept with lights on every single night that I went to bed until I was about 21.
And did you think that the light kind of lessen the amount of visits you would have?
I felt that it did, absolutely, because I felt like when I was in the dark, they were easier to draw into me. So when I go back to my childhood, every time that they would try to come in and connect with me, they were doing it in the dark, because I was taught just to go to bed with the lights off, no big deal. And the light would definitely deter them because they wouldn't come in. I don't know if that's makes sense or anything.
What kind of entities would visit you, and what would these encounters be like?
Well, now when I look back on it, so back then I actually didn't really know. I mean, I knew that it was one of my great-grandmothers, absolutely, but I look back on it now and it was actually one of my spirit guides. Yeah, it was one of my spirit guides. So it was one of my spirit teams.
And why would they visit you?
That's a great question.
You're just taking off with this.
I could talk to Kristen.
I don't know why they would come to me. I wish I had some amazing explanation of, oh my gosh, I don't know at the end of the day. I don't know why they were revealing themselves to me. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know what they... because they don't really speak in the way that humans speak. They're completely different. Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of detail?
Yeah, so what we're doing right now, we're conversing. Spirit doesn't do that. They communicate with you through symbols or metaphors or life experiences, and you know what I mean? They don't just directly come over to you and introduce themselves and, oh, I'm here for this reason, and you're gonna have a great day tomorrow, or you're gonna play soccer. You know, they don't do that.
Sounds like it'd be easy if they did, though.
It would be, though, right? I know. They like to make things a little bit harder. I don't think that they do it intentionally. I think it's just the way that they communicate onto the other side.
So you think that these entities that are visiting you are people who have passed and they're still existing but on a different frequency than we can perceive in everyday life?
Absolutely. So those who have passed, I wasn't getting other people's past loved ones until my adult life. I had to go through my own kind of divine experiences to be able to have that part of me activate. You basically have to accept what's going on with you and your ability, or whatever you want to call it, to be able to want to do something with it. So it just got to a point in my life, I couldn't stare it away. It was suffocating me. It was not ruining my life, but it was making things very, very difficult for me.
You never asked for this.
Exactly. Because people always say, oh, why you? Or why this person? Or why that one? You know, you always see that stuff in Hollywood or whatever, right? And I don't know why. I really don't know why certain people can and why certain people can't. I believe everybody can connect to their own loved ones, absolutely. But I think that not everybody can connect to everything. Does that make sense?
So Kristen works a lot with energy, and that's something that's very important to you from the conversations that we've had. And one thing that I like that you mentioned is that you've been asked to do a podcast a few times, and you've turned it down, and for a few reasons. Well, one is you're really just starting to embrace that 2-year, do things that scare you, but also two, the past podcast hosts were female, and you mentioned that you wanted a masculine energy to kind of balance your own energy, which is something that I find very interesting. And the guest I spoke to today, who will come on Wednesday, she also said a similar thing about a masculine energy balancing out her own. So tell me a little bit about energy and why that's important, and do you get a feel for someone's energy right when you first meet them, or does it take a while?
Yeah, so when it comes down to masculine and feminine energy, are you talking about me or for everybody? Because the reason why masculine energy is important for me is because it grounds me and it roots me down into the earth. I'm really bad at trying to ground myself because I live in a different kind of an energy, right? With masculine energy, it's easier for me to be present. It's easier for me to be grounded in the moment rather than kind of just getting fed with creative thoughts and energy and then it not making sense and it kind of going around everywhere and stuff like that. And
this was another really interesting thing you said the other day. If people have had certain traumas in their life, they might compensate by having say if a woman grew up without a father, for example, she might compensate by being overly masculine in her personality. Can you speak a little bit about that imbalance and what somebody's gone through and why they compensate?
Absolutely. So basically in the root of your spine, it's called your root chakra. It's at the base of your spine. So you have two polarities within the root chakra. You have the masculine energy and then you have the feminine energy, right? If something traumatic happens, especially to a female, typically your own masculine energy will overtake that feminine polarity, causing the feminine polarity to be very, very minuscule in the root chakra. If a boy was just raised by a single mom, the opposite happens. His feminine energy becomes too overdeveloped and his masculine energy becomes minuscule. So
That's
it works.
so interesting.
It works oppositely in both genders or both sexes or whatever that you want to call it, right? So you'll always notice that sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with it, but if there's a young boy and he's single parented, like mother or whatever, he will be a little bit more feminine and he'll really struggle to activate and feel safe and comfortable within his own masculine energy because he never grew up around it. It wasn't something that was available to him or present to him, right? So he'll often struggle with some shyness or some anxiety, or he will be insecure, or he doesn't know how to go out into the world at school, in junior high school, that kind of a thing, versus someone who has both masculine and feminine energies. And both parents, it doesn't matter their genders or their sexes either, as long as there is that that masculine and that feminine energy that's coming in to balance it out.
So that can even include a gay couple where one man is overly masculine or masculine, and the other man
But
is
that's
feminine.
typically what happens in gay relationships anyway,
Right.
is you'll notice that someone's a little bit more masculine and the other person's a little bit more feminine, because that's how the polarity of nature works. It's completely normal.
What are you thinking about all this?
Just along for the ride.
Yeah.
This is so outside of my area of expertise.
I know, I love that. I feel like I'm a bit of like constantly pulling Ryan into more interesting things than this business. But you've never done anything that we've done so far. Like, you've never done a cold dip. Well, you have foraged, actually. You have that up on me. I'm behind on that one.
Yeah, come on, give it the times.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about how you first serviced a client of yours, because you have some clients, they come to you for, I guess, what would be an astrological reading.
Okay, we're going to talk about astrology. Yeah.
We can.
Totally.
Do you have people that come to you for clairvoyant? Well, I guess that would be more of your seminars, but do you do that on a one-to-one basis as well?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And
So
what does that look like?
So so basically what would happen, you would just make an appointment, and then, well, it depends on if we're talking about astrology, if we're talking about the clairvoyance part of it, right? So I'm going to say 70% is the clairvoyance, and then 30% is probably the astrology. Astrology is basically a huge passion of mine. I've been studying it for about 10 years. So I've gathered a lot of information and a lot of knowledge about it and stuff like that. Whereas clairvoyance is more of my original service. I don't know. So basically, in clairvoyance, it would be a 1-hour session. You basically just sit down in a chair and then I kind of take over, and then spirit kind of takes over. But with astrology, it's a little bit more grounded and rooted, because I'm having to be present in that moment to be able to digress and discuss all of the different kind of things that comes with astrology and stuff like that. So it's about an hour and a half.
So let's go back to the clairvoyance part.
Yes.
I'm trying to really picture that. I've never sat
that's
with
okay.
anybody
That's okay.
and had anything like that done in front of me. Can you tell us more about that? I'm almost afraid to ask questions here, because I'm like, I don't know anything about this.
That's okay.
I don't mean to sound
No.
anything other than curious.
Yeah.
What is it like for you and the person that you're meeting with? And do you invite, would you call it spirits to come? Do they talk through you? Do they communicate with you? How does it work exactly?
So I don't invite anything or anyone. They come to me. So that's what some people have a hard time understanding. I don't seek this out. They seek me out, right?
Okay.
So the way that it would work, I'll feel the energy of the person. That's fine. But then sometimes they will come in to replace that person's energy with certain messages or certain things.
Right. So earlier you said they don't communicate the way you and I communicate.
Yeah.
So how do you take what they are trying to communicate to give that information to the person?
That's where the challenge and the experience comes into play. So they communicate through me, given my own life circumstances, right? So the other day, a little example, they showed me somebody chopping up vegetables on a cutting board. So I told the lady about it, and she said that her partner or something like that had made a cutting board. Like, that's what his work does. That's what his business is, right?
Okay.
Just a little bit of an example, right? Sometimes they'll communicate through mountains or just regular symbols, but the majority of the time they will communicate through my own understanding and my own life experiences. So if they'll play over a scene of something that could be a little bit scary, that causes anxiety, they'll show me a very specific part of my life when it comes to that stuff, right? Probably a poor example, but they can show me faces, they can show me letters, they can show me numbers, they can show me months, they can show me just about anything, right?
So would you call these visions?
They are visions, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like you're in the store and you see a number and you keep seeing that number everywhere you look.
So it depends on the time. So I can do both. So they will come. So, you know, when you close your eyes and all that you see is black. So when I close my eyes, I see places, people, animals, colors, and symbols. So I can't shut off my mind's eye. So when I'm going to bed, they'll just kind of blast me with all this different stuff. And then sometimes, if the energy is high enough and clear enough, they can manifest outside of the body. So my spirit guide, as an example, like 2 weeks before I got engaged, my spirit guide came at the bottom of the bed. She was fully clothed as a person. She had this cowbell and she rang it down, but I could hear almost like Santa's sleigh bells, you know, those really high-pitched ones. And I said to her, I said, that's weird because that's a cowbell. I know that cowbells, they sound different, right? But that's her way of showing me that there was something coming into my life that was new. And then she kind of just left, because when she woke me up, she touched my feet. And then I woke up and she was at the end of the bed. And it was like a full figure. It's very similar to what you see on, you know, the haunting kind of documentaries.
Not much of a scary.
Okay, I didn't think so. But the real
one.
ones, yeah, some of them are down in the States. It's almost like an apparition. You can see very clearly their hair, their textures, their faces, their colors, and their clothing, their garments, whatever that they're wearing.
So does this scare you anymore, or frighten you, or startle
It used to scare the hell
or
out
is
of
it just
me,
kind of normal now?
It's normal now. Oh my gosh, it's so normal now. So that's what I was talking about earlier. When this was a part of my big experience as a child. This used to scare the crap out of me. I used to be sweating. I used to have panic attacks because of it, right? I didn't know what the hell was going on. No one was explaining it to me.
Right.
I'm a mid-90s baby. It wasn't normal back then, you know what I mean? I'm sure it's still not even kind of normal now, right? But at the same time, as I got older and I got more comfortable, and then it was a really big part of me accepting just this part of me. And when I was able to accept it is kind of when it wasn't scary. It's my normal now. It's what I know.
Yeah.
How did you get into having a first client? What did that look like for you?
I don't even remember my first client. There's a lot of them that I don't remember. I either remember every detail or I don't remember any of them because I see a lot of people, right? So my first one, I don't really remember Okay. Yeah, okay. So the first one, it actually wasn't like a private one-on-one. It was actually at work, and I don't even know if I can say this out loud, but it was a young girl, and she had told me, she was just buying some stuff, no big deal, but I'm just going back into the memory, so sorry. But the number of it came on because I'm really, really big into numbers and stuff. So one of the numbers that came on, it was somebody who was around her and stuff like that.
Around her, there was an energy around her?
Around her, yeah, because the first one, it's almost like I can't remember my first private one-on-one. However, I remember the first person, like the first spirit that came through me, and it was the young girl. She's the sweetest thing in the world, but it was almost it was a number kind of a thing too, right? So it was one of my favorite numbers, and it was 147, and then that energy kind of came in, and I just approached it, and then the rest is kind of history. I probably butchered the crap out of that.
So did you tell her?
Of course I did. Yeah, I did.
How'd she take it?
She took it well. Yeah, and that's another thing.
Yeah, imagine if people are coming to you for that service.
Yeah.
Then they're kind of expecting...
Well, and this person that she mentioned didn't come to her for service. She was just in the store buying something.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Is I don't get a whole lot of negative things if I were to approach or say something to somebody.
You mentioned an interaction you had recently where you were in the store, and I think it was a couple came in, and you kept having an image in your mind of, I believe you mentioned it was a gunshot. Can you share that?
I can, yeah. So, yeah, it was very, very dramatic. So basically what I kept seeing, just in my mind and in my mind's eye and things like that, was just this young guy kind of being shot with a shotgun, right? So I dismissed it like I normally do. Sometimes it takes them a couple of times to really get me to say something or do something about it, because sometimes it can be really scary. So then I dismissed it and it came back and then it came back again. So the third time is kind of my way to, if they have to do it 3 times, you know what I mean? For me to kind of say something if I'm kind of having an off day or whatever, right?
So who are they?
Spirits.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow along.
No, that's okay. And it's probably really nutty to you and I totally get it. So basically,
No, I'm just...
they showed me the vision 3 times. And then by the 3rd time I said, okay, I'm just gonna say something. So then I approached the person, the people. Did you lose someone who got shot? And they said, yes, his name is Nick. And then the rest kind of went
It's pretty
down.
wild, eh?
Well,
And I want to mention that both of us are, I feel like Ryan and I are on the same page in that
Oh, yeah.
we're 100%, we're opening up your book and we're reading it and we're
Exactly.
into the story.
Yeah.
So we're not by any means
No, I know.
judging you
No, I know.
assuming thinking you're
Sometimes I
crazy.
can hear myself speak and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it sounds crazy. So I think it sounds crazy. So I can only imagine what it sounds like to people because it does sound crazy.
the other thing is you just know it so well. And when somebody knows something so well and they speak about it, it's hard for somebody who knows nothing about it to keep up.
Right.
Exactly.
We don't
And-
really have common language yet.
Yeah.
Like the other day I said medium, and I was like, oh, a medium is like a substance that things move through. And you were like, no, I'm a medium. And like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then I thought about it further afterward, and I guess that is the same thing still. Like, spirits use you as a medium to communicate messages to other people.
Exactly. So I'm in the middle of the 2 worlds. So I'm in the middle of the physical world and I'm in the middle of the spiritual world. Yeah.
Let's talk about how you started to charge for your service. What did that look like for you? You must have had a lot of people come to you and say, I can't be giving my time away for free. I must charge for my time in some way.
If I could, I would. That was probably the hardest decision that I had to make. So then over time, I learned how much energy and how much of my life that this consumed. So it wasn't really like, it wasn't something, if I had it my way, I wouldn't be charging anybody anything, right? Obviously, that's not how the world works. It's something that took me a long time to be comfortable with. But then, in my perspective and in my experience, spirit was taking so much away from me in my life that I kind of started to feel comfortable or okay with having something there. I just call it an energy exchange. That's all that it is at the end of the day. It's just an exchange of energies. You get to utilize my vessel, my mental health, my emotions, and my physical body to connect to your loved ones. And then there's a common energy exchange there with it, right?
So when a spirit communicates through you, does that fill you with energy or does it deprive you of energy?
Completely depends on the spirit. So some spirits will absolutely boost me up. I will still feel a little bit of exhaustion or feeling a little bit unlike myself. However, some of them can absolutely deplete you and make you feel a whole lot of pain even afterwards, right? So a big issue that I'm running into now, so yes, there's high vibrational spirits that are gorgeous that will fulfill me a little bit for a little amount of time. But then there's other spirits who will completely take everything away from me, and then I have to boost my own energy and get myself back to that kind of middle ground where I am myself completely. Does that make sense?
So it really is an exchange of energy. And I spoke the other day and I mentioned how much I feel like money is energy.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense that you would charge for that. You know, like what I mean? If you wanted to get work done on a house and you didn't want to put your energy into it, you would spend your money to get someone to do it.
Excuse me.
So it's really just a value of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just laughing at you. Money's energy.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
I often take monetary analogies and I translate them to other parts of my life. And one of my main goals is to get out of the monetary system altogether, which sounds crazy for a person to say. But that's a goal of mine. I think we can do it. I don't think we need to live in this monetary society any longer.
No, the world is definitely changing and shifting.
So I'm wondering if you could tell us about some of your some stories that stand out to you. The ones that give you maybe the most energy, the ones that most deplete you. You don't have to say names
No, of
or anything. But
I was saving this for, my my own personal record. But yeah, no, I can definitely talk a lot about it. Do you want me to go with the good ones, the ones that fed me the most and stuff?
Well, a
Let's
little
do
bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're up for it.
Do you want to know about the scary ones or just?
Ooh, a scary one would be great.
Okay, so this one, there's a lot of them that stick out to me, but one of them in particular, I had a group session in from somewhere in Central, many years ago, and they all came in and we're halfway done and we're flowing and everything's great and stuff like that, right? Anyways, there's this man on the other side and he kept laboring my breathing. So that's typically my indication of heart and lungs. There's a problem with the heart and lungs that were kind of going on. He made me feel like a restriction in my throat. So when they pair those two parts of my bodies together, that's typically my indication that someone had drowned, right? So I just kind of approached the situation, okay? I have a young man coming forward. He told me that he passed away in a drowning. And he kept talking about this hairbrush. Oh my gosh, I'll never forget a day in my life. This hairbrush, and I'm like talking to him, right? Not acknowledging the people who were standing in front of me. And I said, "You want me to talk about a bloody hairbrush?" I said, "How ridiculous." Like, what's going on here? So anyways, I told the person, because he said it to me 3 times, because I kept disregarding it, and I said, "I'm not going to talk about a hairbrush, it'd be so silly." Anyways, I told the lady, I was like, "He keeps telling me about a hairbrush," and honest to God, her jaw dropped, and she just looked like she saw a ghost. And she looked at me and she told me, she said, when they found his body washed up on shore, he was holding a hairbrush in his hand when the people found the body, right? So that one kind of was really freaky.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
It was weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're certainly tapping into different frequencies of existence that normal or everyday people may have access to or may not. At least they don't know how to tap into it. Mm-hmm. And is that, what energy are you drawing on? Is that the Kundalini force? And how do you hone that energy?
I don't know. I think that it comes from my heart and my solar plexus. I think that the Kundalini, it was something from such a long time ago. I think that it definitely awakened my psychic centers and my channels in my throat space, like my throat chakra, my third eye, and my crown chakra. Do I think that that's what kind of triggered everything? Maybe a little bit, but not completely. It just comes in from here and into my solar plexus. I don't know how to explain it because it just kind of happens. It's not something that, and I never know when it's going to happen. Sometimes it could happen 50 times a day, sometimes once, or sometimes once every 3, 4, 5 days. It always takes me by surprise. So I don't really know how to tell someone how to hone in on it because I struggled with it for years. It was something that was very, very hard because some spirits are so clear. They will show you so much detail and they're so clear in their minds, right? Versus another spirit who's very low vibrational, who's very just stuck and had a lot of struggles in their own lives where they're more foggy headed and I'm not seeing it or hearing it as clearly as I should or I have with other spirits or other souls before. So I don't know how to hone in on it. I know that it took a lot of grounding and a lot of practice and a lot of alone time and trying to understand what it was that was happening to me. Because they taught me. I never sought out anything or anyone to teach me.
For other people who are in a similar situation to you, where maybe they're a young adult or maybe they're even a child, and they're going through something similar, what are some resources that you sought out to learn about what it is you're going through?
I don't think I had resources at that time, but one piece of advice I can give them would be to trust yourself completely and entirely. I always make this funny kind of thing. If I trusted myself from the time I was a child, I would be so much more advanced than I am now, right? Because you hear so much noise in people around you or in your environment or the world, and they only want what's best for you, right? But at the end of the day, I think trusting yourself is the best thing that you can do. But resources would kind of be any kind of book on it, I guess, like channeling books or any kind, like I have a Kundalini book at home that I kind of sought out on Amazon because no one, and this was in 2018, so I never knew who to go to. I used to do Kundalini yoga when I was like 17 years old, but it wasn't that I was experiencing, you know what I mean? So I kind of just let the universe kind of just trickle me down the internet browser. Then I kind of came on certain authors, and I would only buy or get whatever that I was kind of feeling drawn to or that I was feeling called to and stuff like that.
Do you know about Kundalini energy?
Very little.
Very little, yeah. And I, to be honest, I do as well, but it's something that's been coming up for me a lot in the last year, so I've been diving into it a little bit. And Kristen, you can correct me, but my understanding of it is there's this stored energy in our spinal cord, and by doing certain breathing practices and yoga poses and mantras as well, you can awaken that energy and you can raise it through your chakras, through your spinal cord, up into the pineal gland. And once it vibrates at a certain frequency, you can unlock powers that are really beyond human capability.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're completely right.
I'm on track. I'm learning.
You're completely aligned.
Great.
So,
some people claim that they can do really crazy shit, like teleport, when they awaken this. Have you ever heard of the rainbow body?
Yeah.
The rainbow. So my understanding of what that is, or the light body is another word for it. These monks go in these isolated meditation chambers, and they can meditate to the point where they leave this earth. And what's left behind is like a little ash statue. And this is a thing that's recorded and documented that happens in the world.
let's take a word for it.
That's why monks go and meditate for years on earth, because everything from the physical world traps you into one lower vibrational frequency. So when you're trying to raise your vibration all the time, the world will always keep you stuck, right? So monks were actually put into these little places of worship, or whatever you want to call them, because the outside world cannot interfere on the raising of their spirit and the transformation of their energy.
Can you speak a little bit about, while we're kind of on this topic, can you speak a little bit about the different frequencies that you believe exist? You mentioned the God, and then I forget now the different layers of frequencies or perspectives.
So frequencies to me are limitless, and I have no idea how many of them exist. So if anything, how I'm going to get human brains to understand, there's probably billions. Let's just be honest. But I believe at the top of that would almost be your source, creator, God, your consciousness of creation, right? So whatever that anyone in their own separate belief system wants to call that, you can kind of break it down like that. And then underneath that, you could almost go into like a universe, or the universe's energy. Then you could kind of go into archangel or other deities or ascended masters, other gods or goddesses that are a branch off of a creation or a creator in the top kind of pyramid scheme of it all. Then you could go down to angel, spirit guides, guardian angels, spirits, humans, all of that stuff. So humanity, what I feel and what I believe, we're at one of the lowest vibrational frequencies out of all of those vibrations. So vibrationally, I do feel, or think at least, there's probably millions of different frequencies, if not billions. I really have no idea. I don't think that anyone truly actually knows. But the best way that I can explain energy would be that it's almost like a pyramid scheme, right?
Yeah.
Of it just kind of going down like that.
Right.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
No, that does make sense. I mean, science is all about frequencies and vibrations and things like this. Everything in the universe vibrates and has a different frequency. So it aligns. I do have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting on over here. I'm curious what your take is on why the spirit world would want to communicate with us.
I think it's for many, many different... Now, that's a vast question, honestly. I think it's for many different reasons. Because that would have to depend on their soul's evolution and their purposes and things of that nature. So I think that it depends on how they had passed away. So a lot of tragedies that pass, a lot of their messages is, well, for healing, you know what I mean? But the higher vibrational spirits, so like grandparents or great-grandparents who've just passed by natural causes and diseases and illnesses and stuff like that, a lot of their big messages are of new life coming into the physical world, so the extension of a bloodline, so children, newborn babies, graduating school, college, university, bringing an awareness into the realm of they are aware of what you're doing with your own life and your purpose to kind of keep you on track of where you're supposed to go, where you're headed into your own life. Someone who's passed tragically, a lot of their messages they're a lot more devastating than a higher vibrational, natural caused, beautiful soul, right? Than someone who tragically passed at a very young age that was kind of ripped out from this earth, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So they want to communicate to who was left behind?
Absolutely. So it could be for healing, it could be for support, it could be for closure, it could be for grief or for guilt. It could be that somebody is going down a wrong path because they don't know how to deal with the loss of their loved one. So you could talk about that person's going down addiction or alcoholism, or they're struggling with their own mental health. Spirit will kind of step in. Okay, we need to kind of learn or fix what's kind of going on to realign you with your own path. So I'm going to say it's all of those above, and some of them are just curious.
Yeah, so, what you're saying is when somebody passes and their spirit goes, they still care about who they left behind.
Oh my gosh, yes. They care so much. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was asking.
And
I mean,
it depends.
we like to think that they would.
Yeah, of course. It depends on the emotional connection that you share with them too, right? So if you had a really strong emotional connection with a parental figure, like mom or dad, or, nanny who kind of helped raise you or something like that, that's a really strong emotion. So the stronger that emotional connection is, the more beautiful the messages will be. It's kind of when someone gets trapped in insecurity or fear-based emotion, or a relationship or a connection that was established on insecurity or abuse or jealousy or some kind of really fear-based emotion, they tend to not get the best messages. They'll get little tidbits, but the stronger the emotional connection is, the more amazing that your messages are.
Well, let's talk about astrology.
Yeah.
Okay.
This might come as a surprise to you, but I know nothing about it.
Really?
How predictable.
I'm kidding.
I know about, science, stars, black holes,
astronomy.
planets. Astronomy, thank you. Astrology is completely different. That's right.
Yeah. So astrology, and I'm going to butcher this one because I don't know much about astrology.
Yeah.
But I believe it has a lot to do with when you were born, your star signs, and you went so much more in depth than my understanding of it.
Yeah. So basically, the moment that you were born, it reveals the way that the universe was aligned the second that you came into the physical world, right? So you have your sun sign, so that's something that's just your ego, it's just your personality, it's just a small way of how you express yourself. You have the moon, which is your mind. It's what literally rules and controls over your emotions, how your mind functions, how it operates, the innate nature of your mother, your rising sign is the physical body. It maps out all 12 of your houses and what energy controls what area of your life. It tells me a lot about your physical appearance, how people perceive you, and your health, and just how tall you are, how your bone structure is, how your teeth look. All of that is the rising sign. You have Mercury, which is all about communication and how you mentally process that information. So we have the communication there. Then we have Mars, which is all about your creativity and your motivation. So he's all about the raw emotion of the more negative parts of your emotion. So a lot of the anger, the way that we express our anger comes out in our Mars sign. The way that we wake up in the morning, why we are so full of life and why we are so motivated versus a couch potato. That's our Mars sign. Venus, which is our love language. It is our partner. It is how we express love. It's how we give love and receive it. You have Saturn, who's an authoritarian. He's almost like the father of the universe. So he rules old age, like elders, teeth, bones, all of that. He can tell you a lot about your work, a lot about your career. He can tell you a lot about your maturity levels, your soul lessons. You have Jupiter, who rules abundance, spirituality, your religion, your higher education, your higher learning. You have Neptune, which is almost like a little bit of a delusional planet, but she's beautiful in the way of acting, theater. She's a poet. She's a dancer. She's everything when it comes to the arts. We have Uranus. He's a little bit of a hardship one. He's more spontaneous. He's a revolutionaryist. He's really aggressive though. So typically when he's involved, not many things go very nicely. He's really, really aggressive, but he's here to turn your world upside down. And then Pluto is also not the best. He's kind of death and rebirth, and he is our traumas in life. He makes everything a lot harder on us here into our physical world and into our lives.
That's why we demoted Pluto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kick that one out of there.
Yeah.
So
Pluto's not nice.
It sounds like for somebody looking to gain a different perspective on their life, they would come to you and you would read what do you refer to
Their
it
natal
as?
chart.
Their natal chart.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll look into the midheaven, the career. I look into the home that you were raised. I'd look into the physical body. I'd look into your relationships. I'd look into your health house. I would look into your your siblings' house, your communications houses, or your money houses if you wanted to discuss that, or your travel houses, your long distance ones, what kind of set your soul on fire, all of that.
And that's all without any information about the other person.
Yeah, that's only just from calculating your birth
Wow.
time, your location, and your charts.
So you feel like astrology is as important as DNA? Because you mentioned like your height for somebody. You would be able to tell, or the way they physically look.
Absolutely. So I'm not going to say it's as important as DNA. However, very, very good. You're onto something with that. Astrology is very, very important. I think that people are starting to wake up to it a little bit more in the past 5 years. But overall, for the last couple hundred years, we've only been basing things on one planet, right? So the sun in astrology is included as a planet. So there's 10 planets to astrologers. Basically, what's been going on is that people were only looking at their sun signs rather than their moons, their Mercuries, their Mars, their Venus, the other 9 planets. They weren't really looking into any of that until, I'm going to say, in the past 10 to 15 years. So people have been judging it off of their sun signs completely. So it's incredibly important, and it's underrated, and not that many people take it seriously because it's super mainstream now.
Right. And I guess that's a question that comes to my mind is, why is it important? With these planets being so far away, the amount of effect that they would have on an individual body seems like it would be very small.
Yeah, they control our lives. They literally control our lives.
So how is that the case? If they're so far away and they have no impact on us, well, perceivably, they have no impact on us, then how does it make a difference when you're born?
So I think that when you're born, you come into your human reincarnation parts. Now I'm speaking spiritually and metaphysically. I'm not really speaking scientifically or, anything like that. I think the reason that they affect us is because it has something to do with the gravitational pull when it comes to Earth and with the moon, but the way that the universe is structured and ordered. Because I don't know why it would be so important in the real mental part of it or whatever, but I know that we can feel it and we can sense it as it does control our lives. So to answer your question, I don't fully really know how to answer it. However, it's something that it just rules over our lives, and I think it has something to do with the placement of the Earth in the universe.
It has an impact, but you're not entirely sure how it has an impact.
Yeah, because are you talking about like in the like why does Jupiter affect us? Like, is that what you mean? Or
Are
like
you
the
referring
moon?
to, like,
I'm not sure, to be honest.
you know, you named the planets, but
Yeah.
I don't think you're necessarily talking. I didn't think you were necessarily talking about the planets themselves, because the planets were named after different deities, weren't they? Different
Some of them
gods?
can be, yeah. So what I was meaning was basically when the moon, the moon controls our mind because of the gravitational pull of it. It just is what it is in my brain, right? Why Saturn affects our lives, I mean, I'm kind of blanking out on that one. I really don't know why they control our lives, but I know that they do. So that's a little bit of a tricky question for me, because I'm not really into the whole astronomy
Right.
part of it, right? I just know that it does affect us.
Well, here's an interesting thing. So I'm really into ancient cultures, and throughout the world, we've seen ancient sites, I guess would be a way to describe it, where they physically mark the date and time by aligning it to constellations, and they'll have these constellations imprinted on these massive pillars, like Göbekli Tepe, for example. They have the date that was, I believe, intentionally buried on Pillar 43 in that site. So they're marking a specific date and time intentionally to record it for future generations who discover it. And who knows, maybe there is a lot more than we know to the way life exists outside of what we know.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's more on a frequency based
Yeah,
level.
so I know nothing about that world. Of like how everything is set up, or you know, the PowerPoints, because I'm not interested in that per se, right? So just to elaborate on that a little bit, I've heard of ancient civilizations, but I'm not really too fascinated with it, and I don't have the knowledge, the experience, or the wisdom to be able to shed light on it, if I'm being completely honest.
So let's go back to astrology. You said it's your favorite, though.
Yeah, it's been my passion for so long. I love astrology.
So why is it your favorite, though?
It will tell you. It will tell you literally everything that you want to know about like anything, right?
Yeah.
Just about yourself and your life, what's kind of coming up, what's kind of going on. It's an excellent tool for self-development and whatever vibration that you were born with. So if someone has a bad placed, like an ill-placed Jupiter or Venus, you can always shift out that energy. So sometimes people think that you're just stuck with this energy for life. That's not what I am all about. I'm all about kind of changing and raising your vibration and dealing with the shadow sides of the actual planets and with the energy that you were born into and that you were given to make it into your best self.
So you prefer...
I don't think it's just fate and you have no control over it. That's not what I believe. That's not what I think at all. I think that when you're born with something, it's a map, it's a guideline for a starting point, and that you're able to shift out that energy only if you're doing the work on it.
Okay, so how would you take a client and help them understand their sign, their astrology sign?
Natal chart.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how they can take better control of their lives.
Absolutely. So basically what I would do, I would go into the rising sign. So we would talk about your purpose or your development, or what's kind of why your soul chose to be kind of incarnated into this sign, right? So every single rising sign, they have a point of, okay, what were you born with karmically, or what did you come in here for, or where is the guiding map with it kind of coming into, right? So your rising sign would be able to deal with that. I would go into the moon to see how you're dealing with your own emotions, right? So those who have an exalted moon or moon in Taurus, they're very good at dealing with the emotions of others, but they're not so good at dealing with their own emotions, because they are more stable in their minds, right? So their minds don't wax and wane like a lot of other people's does, because it is exalted in that sign. Versus someone who has their moon in Aries or their moon in Scorpio, that tells me that the moon is the enemy of Mars, right? So the moon is very uncomfortable there. So it tells me that they are a little bit emotionally explosive and they might need some help or some guiding light to be able to deal with the intensity or the explosions of their own emotions, right? So it really depends on what planets are where, their aspects, because there's 5 different aspects, which is almost like the meat of the astrology. It depends on where things are placed and what's kind of going on, right? So depending on what the person wants, some people just want this for a self-developmental tool.
Right.
Other people want to know, okay, what's going on here? What can I expect? I don't really focus too much on what to expect, but I can tell you all about your traumas, all about the way that you spend money or how you earn it. I can tell you all about your career, what you do for a living. I can tell you about your family. I can tell you about your communications, about your partnerships as well, your relationships with others. So it really depends on
Curiosity now is killing me.
the interest of the person, right? Yeah. And a lot of people are just curious and they think it's fun and it's awesome and all of that stuff, right?
Have you ever had a client come to you and pay and then nothing has really come up? And then how does a situation like that go?
With astrology?
With either?
I mean, I don't think so. So astrology is a completely different ball game than spirit. It's funny that you say that. So it's not that anything, like nothing will come up with spirit. But sometimes, and this is, I can count on one hand how many times it's happened in my life, but sometimes things are not as open or detailed as they should be, right? Sometimes people have certain blockages, or sometimes people, they're not operating in a loving kind of place. Not that that's their own fault, you know, it has nothing to do with that. It's just that sometimes it's harder to break down barriers when you've been through a lot, especially when it comes to grief and stuff like that. So with astrology, that never happens, and that never would happen because astrology is its own kind of sector. With spirit, it's probably happened 3 or 4 times, but you're still getting something. It's just, it's not as clear. But that's what I was talking about earlier when it comes to the lower vibrational frequencies and the higher vibrational frequencies of certain spirits, right? So when I say 8% of the time, I get good things, right? I get awesome, detailed messages. That 2% is kind of something rare to happen, but it has happened before. But that leaves me disappointed, and that leaves me frustrated, and that doesn't just leave the person like that, but I probably won't even charge that person for that if that were to occur, right?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm curious about the more businessy side of things that come into what it is that you do. One quick question that I have is, do you find that the majority of your clients are male or female?
It depends. It really depends. I do get a lot of males, though. I really, really do. I'm going to say maybe 50-50 or maybe 60-40. Like 60's female and then 40 are men. But I do get men quite often. I really do. I get them a lot more than people might think or realize.
Why did you assume that he was hinting that men would use your services less?
Just because men are built differently. Yeah, it's
I wasn't.
It's just nature.
I know, but that's how she took it. You never said it.
I'm glad I worded it that way. That it didn't sound like that.
It's not a bad thing. It's just the way that masculine energy versus feminine energy works. It's not to say that men don't come in. Of course they do. You know, but not every kind of. They're less open to it, right? If a man were to be open to it, they would have to be open to it through their daughters or their wives, or they'd have to get introduced to it by somebody in their life already, right?
Interesting.
See, it is a different thing.
I was open to it for a completely different reason. I believe we only experience a tiny fraction of what actually exists out there. And
absolutely.
A lot of the opinions that we have and a lot of the beliefs that we have, I don't think are accurate. I think they're outdated. And I'm ready for changes in many of the major structures we have in this world right now. And I think this is the first step in changing our global consciousness, having conversations like this, having conversations with people that we don't think we would talk to on a normal basis.
Absolutely. The collective consciousness is so real. There's been huge shifts coming in. I'm going to say there's been huge shifts coming into about 2016, 2018, but since COVID, it's been back to back to back to back to back. It's been off the charts in the past 5 years in the collective consciousness, for sure. No doubt. And people are more open and they're more aware of it. And they're really starting to sense that they need a change in their lives, whether it's through their diet or their own personal relationships, or them just being more open. There's nothing worse than having a blocked heart chakra, you know what I mean? Just being open to sense and to feel love no matter what is our primal reason for being alive, to be honest.
How does one open their heart chakra? I love those. It came out pretty plain face.
No, it's totally okay.
Should I try that again?
There's a lot of different things that you could do. So some people naturally have an open heart chakra, but as time goes on and hurt kind of comes in, it might close temporarily. And then some people, they're just really disconnected from their heart space, and that's their nature, and that's totally okay as well, right? Children and babies, they're fantastic for opening up your heart chakra. Animals as well, being around them, or just kind of being in the space of your own family members, or having your own child, or your own animals, your puppy or a kitten or whatever. Those are really, really good energies to kind of open up that space, right? You could use crystals, you could use essential oils, you could just kind of put your hand on your heart just to kind of check in with yourself. Basically, our heart chakra comes into play from the love that we were fed as children. So our parents or our aunts or our grandparents or our uncles, you know, sometimes people, they have a dysfunctional family and maybe their hearts aren't so open, and then they go through the world with a blockage in there. That's normal because they never grew up in that loving environment, or they grew up in a fear-based kind of an environment, which closes that heart chakra to shut down. But using all of those things to be able to open up your hearts will be something to use for sure.
How did you first learn to open up your different chakras? I remember you mentioned you've had a pretty rough life in some aspects. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so how did I learn how to open up my chakras? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and also,
or
are
the
you
Kundalini?
Comfortable sharing some of the personal things that you've gone through that helped you along your path?
Yeah, sure. We can get a little... You mean like vulnerability?
I'm just along for the ride, Michael. I'm just along for the ride here.
Yeah, so vulnerability and stuff like that. I think that we all go through periods of time where we have a blocked heart chakra, or our hearts, we're disconnected from our hearts, you know what I mean? We lose someone that we love, or, you know, a parent passes away, or a grandparent passes. I mean, life is really hard. It's not easy for people to kind of move along in their own lives and in their own direction sometimes, right? So I think that how I really did it, I think that sometimes it just kind of happened. I was more open to it. I was always more of an open, curious person by nature, rather than someone who was kind of shut down or blocked or stuck or stagnant. I was always drawn to a certain way of life and to spirituality as a whole. I was never shut down from it. I used to always think that, okay, I'm open. I've been doing yoga since I was a teenager, so I was always more susceptible to healthy eating or healthy living and stuff like that. I think that when you lose people in your life, it can be something that really takes you some time and some, you know, reading a book or finding somebody that you connect with to really get you out of that funk, right? So I think that when I lost my father, you know, I think that I was stuck in that for a good 2 years, you know what I mean? And
How
then
old were you?
I was 16 when he passed, yeah. And that's, you know, life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for those 2 years, I was pretty weird. I wasn't in a good place and stuff like that, right? But it was almost like as soon as I grew up and I turned 18, something went off in my brain, and I was like, okay, we're going to start focusing on this. We're going to start doing this. We're going to just be more open to new experiences. And I wanted to get better. I wanted to heal. A lot of people sometimes don't want to get better. They don't want to fix things. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to feel hurt and shut and just that weird grief. It's not like I have a hard time being vulnerable, but it's different sometimes, right? But I just kind of had to learn how to navigate certain areas of my life, and then the rest is kind of history, I guess.
This reminds me of a quote that you're famous for saying, which is, a person won't change unless the pain of changing is less painful than what it is that they're going through. And it sounds like you were tired of feeling the way you were feeling.
Oh my
It
gosh,
was
yeah.
painful enough for you to make active steps in your life to change in a different way.
Absolutely. Who wants pain?
Well,
You know?
actually, this is kind of where I'm going with this question and why I'm seeking out some more vulnerable aspects of things that you've gone through. Is a lot of the people I've met in my life that are more interesting people who have stories, who've gone through the shit. You know, it almost seems like the worse their childhood was, in most cases, or at least the people that I've met or gravitate toward, they've really, you know, they've got more to their story, to put it in a certain way. I think the harder somebody's life is, if they pay attention to it in the right way, the quicker they grow.
Oh, absolutely. It just gives you a profound sense of responsibility and duty. You know, sometimes people have old souls, but sometimes they're forced into their old soul kind of nature from a young age, right? I think when it comes to childhood, I had a pretty overall good childhood. There were certain weird, I think that everyone kind of has weirdness going on sometimes in that kind of dynamic and stuff like that. But when you look back on all those experiences, you would never have it any other way. No matter how painful or how horrible that it was, it has made you who you are no matter what. It has made you that resilient, strong person who had to put themselves out there, or who had to get stuff done for your greater good. Because you cannot stay at home all day long, you know, just sitting in the bed, right? You have to do something, but you have to have that desire. And I guess sometimes people don't have that desire. I'll never understand it. But having that desire to not want to stay in your mud, I think that's a starting point, right? Nobody wants pain, but it shapes us into who we are and it makes us us.
Yeah. So why have you been on this journey over the last 2 years to do things that scare you?
I think it has a lot to do with my Saturn return a little bit. I think that if I don't step out of my own way, I'm not going to really... I'm going to look back when I'm like an old woman and I'm going to be like, oh, look at all these opportunities that you had that you didn't really have and stuff like that. So I see things kind of from the bigger perspective of stuff. But at the same time, I think it's very important for everybody to do things that scare them. No matter how hard that they are, we need to start somewhere, and getting outside of your comfort zone is incredibly important. If you just stay in that bubble, you will never grow, ever.
Right. So how are you going to continue to step outside of your comfort zone? And I think
That's a great question.
I already kind of know.
Yeah, of course.
And this is the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I am, of course, I'm going on tour, so I will be reading publicly with bigger groups of people. And I think we're doing like 10 or 12 of them, or maybe 11. I don't even remember off the top of my head right now, but we're going to smaller kind of communities just because I've noticed a lot of tragedies come from those smaller communities. And maybe they don't have the right to come in here, or they don't have the opportunity to kind of come into town and stuff like that. So it's kind of just me extending out my arm to the smaller parts of Newfoundland to see if they are open to it, or if they need some healing, or, you know, to some closure with their own loved ones and stuff like that. So I'm going on tour this year.
It's exciting.
It is.
And that's also a huge burden in some senses, that there's a lot of administrative work that you have to do. There's a lot of businessy things that you have to do. And I don't know if you see yourself as self-employed or as an entrepreneur, but you're very much in that world whether you want to be or not. You know, there's a certain amount of legwork you need to do to plan a tour.
Absolutely.
Walk us through what you've had to do for that.
Again, this is going to sound terrible. I haven't really had to do much because my husband takes care of that.
Okay. That's great.
He's been doing all the advertising and kind of setting things up and all of that stuff, right? So when it comes to that stuff, I'm just going to show up because that's all that I planned or intended on doing.
She's going to show up, Michael.
I don't like what this guy does.
That's a skill in itself, is what she's done.
Oh, okay.
Just showing up.
A lot of math.
I'm not good with planning stuff like that.
Do you think your husband is the opposite of you in a lot of ways, and you complement each other well?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. I think we're the opposite, but we're the same in a different way, I guess.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I feel that way about my own relationship.
Yeah. So
That-
he does things that, like, I would never want to do. I like to create things. I like to design things. I like to do all that stuff, right? I like to connect with people, make new connections with people. And he loves all that too, but he's more of, he likes to get his hands dirty into things, I guess, and just...
And so earlier we were chatting before we started, and you mentioned that we were asking you some business questions about how you operate, and you said you don't really think about what you do as a business. And I think that's why Michael phrased this question earlier the way he did, because you said you don't really think about marketing or sales or advertising. And so many people that want to start a business, regardless of what they go into, get consumed with sales, marketing, how am I going to get clients, customers. But you don't spend any energy on that.
I don't.
That's lovely. She has that partnership. You know, they complement each other well in that business aspect as well.
Yeah.
Like with John? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's handling all the stuff that you
Well,
don't
that's
want to
what
handle.
I mean. Yeah. I guess you would call it that. Yeah. I don't think about any of that. So I'm honest to God, I'm the worst person in the world to ask those questions because I don't think about any of that. I mean, should I? Sure. I probably should.
Or maybe you shouldn't, though. That's what I'm getting at. Maybe
that's why it works. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you never worry about, filling out your schedule, making sure there's...
No.
None of that.
I don't.
I'm like, what?
If anything, I worry about how exhausted and how drained I'm going to be when I look at it.
So does your husband manage that, though? Or is it just or is it just something that, with
the tour and stuff, oh my gosh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I just mean your everyday business outside of the tour. Is it something your husband manages, or is it just something that you're in such high demand that it just kind of happens for you?
I don't even know if I'm even in high... using all those words, it's such a foreign world to me, I wouldn't say that I'm in demand. I really have no idea. I think that people have purposes, and I think that certain people are meant to do certain things. Like a doctor is meant to be a doctor for a reason. I think that certain people are not meant to be nurses, but others absolutely are. Do you know what I mean? I think in life, I have a different perspective on certain things, right? So I just think that if you're meant to do it, it's just going to happen. It's just going to happen.
Need a couple pages from her book.
Yeah. That's why I brought you to. You can learn a lot from her.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why it works, is because there's no pressure or there's no stress. I have no idea.
No, I think there's something to be said for that.
I think that when you put pressure on yourself and your energy, it's almost like you're blocking that energy.
Definitely the creative side of you.
To come in for a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I struggle with creativity.
But you also don't entirely need it in your business. I mean, Kirsten, in yours, Kirsten handles a lot of the creative aspect of what you do, and then you just have to follow the plan.
Yeah, just make things happen.
Yeah.
Just execute.
Right. That's all I mean. At the same time, then you've got the brain capacity to worry about getting the clients and all the stuff that you don't really want to be focusing on.
Yeah.
Are you having issues? Like, do you want to talk about it, or?
I love that. Let's talk about that.
Talk about what? Talk about me?
Sure.
No, there's nothing negative. I just live in a very different world.
Very different.
Very different.
Absolutely.
I'm struggling, to be quite honest, keeping up. I'm very interested.
Of course.
I'm not.
Oh my gosh,
I'm not saying that what you're saying is not interesting to me.
No.
It is interesting because it's so outside of the world that I live in, my norm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just trying to keep up with things here now, but I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean,
and kudos to you for being open-minded. You're already a step ahead of that just by being open to it.
Yeah, I have people in my life that are definitely more open-minded, but I think you know me pretty well.
I know you very well.
I
think I know you better than you know yourself.
I don't know about that now. No, this is super interesting. This is and the questions I'm thinking about, you're kind of getting ahead of me because I'm just trying. I feel like I'm playing catch up a little bit with all of this. I'm just kind of like, and then I don't know. I'm kind of thinking, what?
I know. I feel like we could talk to Kristen all day long. We'll definitely have to have you back for another episode. How long have we been recording right now?
No idea.
It's 7:30 and we started at... So it's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
6 pretty.
Felt like 10
We
minutes.
probably started... Yeah, it went right.
I told you after 5 minutes you're gonna forget the cameras are there,
It's true.
and
yeah.
it just kind of everything just goes away.
We haven't even asked like some of our regular questions. We have to ask you, for one, our actionable takeaway. So what's something that you do in your life every day that you think somebody else could learn or benefit from?
Meditation and eating properly or fasting or getting a great night's sleep. I would probably say meditation and just keeping the faith for sure. I think that any of those 4 things.
Okay. And what would you say to somebody who feels like they're on a similar journey or path as you are?
Keep going. It doesn't get easier, but keep going. Never stop doing what you're doing. You have to continue to go on unless you want
Yeah,
to
I'm
feel.
hoping that someone's gonna see this and hear this when we put it out there, and it's gonna resonate with them and say, "Oh, wait, that happened to me." Your story, of what you said, they're gonna think to themselves, "That happened to me. I didn't know what to do with it. It scared me, or I had different emotions about it. I didn't know how to process it." Would you want somebody like that to reach out to you to share their story?
Sure, my goodness, yeah. Just embrace who you are is what I can say the most, right? Whether it's someone who's opening up their channels or their abilities or their own or the universe or just kind of getting into the flow of spirituality or whatever that it is, absolutely, I would be open to that. Just embracing who you are is so important.
Yeah, I think that what you went through, your story as a child, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes.
Wait. I
know, it's so
if
weird.
I woke up and there was like
I know.
a spirit on that,
You know what's crazy?
You would
scared the
die.
life out of me.
I know, yeah. I was petrified. I was literally.
I believe it
Yeah.
happened to me when I was a child.
Yeah,
I think my nan sat on the edge of my bed after she had died.
absolutely.
And I never told anybody that, and I never really thought about it until we started re-chatting. But I remember in the moment feeling really freaked out and a little bit scared. But then at the same time, it was really nice as well.
Absolutely. So the reason why your heart accelerates and it manifests almost like anxiety and panic attacks like I was talking about earlier is actually because your heart is the biggest energy reader of your entire body. So your heart will naturally accelerate when there's a spirit around in your energy field as a natural response to it, right? So that's an absolutely real experience. But only you would know. Do you know what I mean? And that's what makes the connection so special to your grandmother or to spirit or to the other side or to whoever that you are connecting with, is that it's that authentic experience. It's just a divine experience that makes it special.
Yeah, so my sister always tells stories that she's had these types of experience, and it's always at the foot of the bed. You know, it must be because when you sleep, your mind changes.
It does, honey. Yeah, it's because you go from your barriers are down, right, and you're acting and operating out of your subconscious mind rather than your front lobe consciousness.
So she's told me several stories of experiences she's had similar to this, and I always say to her, "I'm sure glad it wasn't me." And she said, "It'll never be you. You're not open to it."
Oh, well, maybe now.
That's what my sister
Someone's
tells
gonna
me.
sit on the edge of Ryan's bed tonight.
No, they won't.
Prank them, you know.
Yeah, well, perfect. This is great.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Oh, I feel like.
But some people are just naturally open versus other people. And it happens to a lot of children because you have no barriers, you have no
Right.
filters, you're not exposed to society or to the world. And the purity of your energy as a child. That's why children are so special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else I want to ask. Do you have anything?
I feel like I could keep asking Kristen questions all day long.
I'm so analytical.
I know, yeah. And
keep-
I listen, I'm the same way. There's a part of my brain that's very much like that. So when this was happening, my gosh, do you know how many times I shut it down? It took me like 21 years to make peace with it, right? So I used to be and there's still a part of my brain that is very much like that. I need to see evidence. I need to see proof. I'm very scientific sometimes. There's a part of me that's very scientific. So there's nothing wrong with that, you know? I always tell people, there's nothing wrong with being skeptics. We don't dislike you. You've never experienced any of this before, how can you make sense of it? How can you believe in it when you've never experienced it before? It's completely normal. I don't blame you at all. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's lack of experience, and with it, and it's so foreign and so new.
Of course.
So, do you have? I would imagine most of your clientele that come see you are open-minded already, incoming with you, or am I wrong?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. I always tell people, I only need an open heart. I don't care about a closed mind, or you don't need to have an open mind to come see me. As long as your heart is open and I feel some form of connection, some form of love in your heart, everything's going to be fine.
Right.
So sometimes sometimes they're a little bit too open-minded, but I've never really thought about it. I've had a lot of closed-minded ones as well.
Yeah.
But their hearts were open. That's the difference.
You ever have a male show up and say, "Yeah, my wife made me come"?
Like every third day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, honestly.
I
Or
figured-
they come together. Yeah, of course. It's so common.
Yeah, I thought it would be because, we've established that more women than men.
Yeah.
And
But not by too much.
And well, not too much, but we're definitely more closed off with as men as opposed to women. And I can just see that happening.
A lot of it has to do with because women can be almost like natural portals to give birth, like to give life, right? So it has a lot to do with the creation of how women are. Not to say that men, whatever, but men are designed differently than women. But it has a lot to do with childbirth and connecting to a child as to why women are more psychically open than men.
It's kind of wild when you think about it. A woman takes a physical body, grows a physical body inside of her, and then at some point in time, a soul enters into that, which is just blows my mind. I believe
It's
scientists.
insane.
I believe scientists have now figured out the moment when the soul enters the body, and there's a flash of light in the cell. Oh, you know
I've seen that. Yeah, I don't know much about it,
Share
but
with
I
the rest
have.
of us. What's
But I
going on?
have seen it.
There's not too much I know about it other than having seen it before, but from my understanding of it is scientists have identified the moment that they believe a soul enters a body, and inside what's physically happening is there's a flash of light in a cell.
But it's incredibly early on.
And did the politicians know about
Like
this?
immediately.
Well, probably. we haven't. I don't know if this conversation is gonna go political.
Those damn politics and politicians. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about those abortion laws. I don't want to go down that path. I take it all back.
Right.
I'm
Actually,
just.
we should just mention. I think I can speak for you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so both of us aren't aligned politically. But we have been leaning more right just because of the way we are interpreting the world. But I certainly am for a woman's autonomy, and I think you are as well.
Yes.
So
yes,
just to say
absolutely.
that. So that's not
Absolutely.
left in a weird space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I do not go down that path.
Yeah,
I know
no.
nothing about that path. That is not my world.
Right.
No,
I am like love and peace.
Yeah.
Anything that's not. I don't even watch the news. I haven't watched the news in like 20 years.
Right.
Honest to goodness, it's not my world.
So before we conclude our conversations, there's a few things that I want to ask you. One is, how does somebody get in touch with you if they want to take advantage of your service?
So you can email, you can go onto the website, you can come down to like the shop if you wanted.
Where's the shop?
Give us a call. It's at 538 Water Street West. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm down there.
That's Brassy Lassie.
It is, honey. Yeah. So I read out of there, so it's great. But apart from that, call. I always tell people I live in the physical world, in the real world, so if you just message or something, you might not get a response. But if you call or you email, you might get more of a faster response and stuff like that.
Okay. And you've got your tour coming up. What else is in Kristen Robinson's future?
That's a great question. I have no idea. Growing, I guess, and just trying to be better always until the day I die. New opportunities. I just need to put them into action. They've been ideas for like 5-6 years now. I think I just need to really put it into action.
Right.
I just struggle to find the time with my life to really be able to go after my goals that I want.
You have a lot of knowledge. Do you ever think about writing a book?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think about it all the time.
So what are your...
That could absolutely, yeah, it probably is going to be happening.
But no timeline. You haven't started writing a book.
She has, actually.
Sounds like I knew that.
Sounds like you did.
So, yeah, I've definitely started something. I mean, I don't know that territory. I just know the information. So I don't know how to edit or how to do anything. I just know my information. So I have something up right now, just sitting in my own kind of personal notes and stuff like that. But I think it's a couple of different books that I probably wanted to touch on in the near future. For sure.
And why would somebody buy that book? What is it about?
So, well, the astrology one would just be about all of my astrology information, essentially. I've been working on that for quite a bit. And then the other book that I was thinking about starting would be a spirit book, for sure. Just to help people identify and know that they're not weird. There's nothing wrong with them. You know what I mean? There seems to be sometimes of a stigma on mediums or on spirituality or on people who are a little bit different or who see the reality of things a little bit differently than the status quo.
You seem like you're very into fashion as well. Do you ever see yourself moving into that world?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I love fashion. I think it's a part of me. I think it's definitely a big part of me. Absolutely. Would I go into that world? I think I dip my toes in that world sometimes. Okay. You know what I mean? But I don't know what I would do with it. I think my closet is humongous. I have too many shoes and too much clothes and too much of all of that. What I do with it, I have no idea. Probably just continue to express myself through it. I love fashion. It is my life.
But you're naturally very creative, or at least I get that impression. So it seems like design would be in your future.
Absolutely. And I do a lot with homes and stuff like that as well.
Okay, like interior design.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, 3 different houses over the years. Nothing like crazy or anything. I just paint and I lime wash and I do wallpaper and I just design.
Okay.
So yeah.
There was
more of a hobby, but.
And you're into modeling as well.
I've been I've been dipping.
How do you know this?
We had coffee.
Dipping my toes into it a little bit the last few years. Yeah, and that was something that took 11 years to do that. That wasn't just something that happened overnight.
Why did it take you 11 years?
I don't know. I think sometimes you just get scared or you just get fearful. You know, I don't know why I was so scared of it. I think it was a lack of security within something in my youth, I guess so. You know what I mean? And then I found that when I got married, I was just like, perfect. Let's do this. So it's almost like he gives me just a sense of security with something inside of myself, I guess. I don't know why it took me so long. That's a great question.
Okay. I feel like...
You're just looking to take some pictures.
No, I don't want... No. I'm trying to remember the things we talked about during coffee. I'm kind of out of that world. Don't really do photography anymore.
I just try to see through them and call them on stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just like, cut to the chase. What's your goal here, buddy? What are you
my goal is to get Kristen to promote her interests so people can reach out to her and she can.
I'm just giving her a hard time.
Of course you are.
Okay. So, any other questions on your mind?
Sort of coughs. Yes and no. I'm processing, and this is all so new to me. So usually we're kind of back and forth. Some episodes, some shows, Michael is taking the lead on questions, very much like tonight, and I'm kind of going, okay. But then there's other nights where I feel like I take the lead on a lot of questions.
Yep.
So it's I'm just processing. I don't know. I think what's wrong. Not that, well, maybe there's nothing wrong, but if I'm a little more quiet this evening than usual, is I don't know the questions to ask.
That's actually why I love that we don't necessarily box ourselves in with the people we talk to on the podcast. I want to talk to as many different people as possible because I feel like they broaden my perspective. That's one of my goals with the podcast.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You need to connect with people who are on the same wavelength as you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And even people who aren't.
Exactly.
So.
It's always room for growth.
Absolutely. I would love to. I told you over coffee that I would love to come in and do a session with you. And I'd like to get this guy in to do a session as well.
Every time we have...
Every
I was going to say over my dead body.
Like, this
No,
guy?
I'm kidding.
Please don't. Don't bring him.
No,
Can't
I
bring the
totally
thing
could.
off of him.
No, that's
No,
your
I'm
own.
just
That's your own
joking.
affair. Let her do her thing, and
I could totally, of course.
Every
Yeah.
time we bring someone onto the show,
I'm always trying to do
Michael's like, you should try this. You should try this. You should try this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Michael's like the single bachelor
Yeah.
Thanks.
who's out there putting himself out in the world, trying, and I'm over here, long-term relationship, kids, very routine life. I know.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Not that I'm not open and trying new things, but it's kind of like
You don't have time.
it's the time is.
Of course.
But you've got more time, and you're kind of trying. You're right there. You're more right there. And I'm just kind of like, oh.
Because I choose to be.
Yeah.
We all have the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I'm just choosing to use it differently than you.
No, that's not true. You have more time.
I think it's a priorities thing.
Maybe, yeah.
You have.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Some people prioritize fun,
Yeah.
You got more? You want to
No, I feel like I'm not. I feel like I'm curious here, but I don't know the questions to ask.
That's okay.
So well, let me turn it around and say, what are some questions that you often get that intrigue you to answer? Like what's people must, because
They asked me a lot of questions, and it was not something that I had anticipated until it started happening. I was like, oh, people are interested in this. This is
because
weird.
there's so few people like you in the world, I would think. It's just not something that, the average person has the ability to connect with a spirit world.
People ask me everything and all things in relation to spirit. How they communicate, how they work, do they keep you up at night? What are they doing? What are they like? How do you tap in? How does this work? What are they doing? All of that stuff.
Do you find
right?
that people are just coming to you primarily in seek of comfort?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because it really depends on a situation, right? I'm gonna say some, absolutely, of course, but not the majority of them. Some people come not expecting anything, and then they leave getting a million different things.
Right.
Sometimes people just need to know something, or sometimes they just need closure because they never had an opportunity for closure because of a tragic passing or something like that. So people definitely seek me out for comfort, but I don't think that that's solely what they seek me out for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just imagine that, when we've all lost somebody.
Of course, we all have.
Everybody has. And closure is a huge thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We had one person on the show.
Sam Tobin.
Sam Tobin lost his mom. I feel like he's still searching for closure.
Actually, he came to mind while you were chatting, and I would love to get him a session with you. I think it would be valuable.
He was a really nice guy. He had lost his mom, and anyway, so he just kind of comes to that because he was on the show as well. So I just feel that would be a strong motivation for somebody to come to you, looking and seeking closure and comfort. And then I guess that's more of the spiritual side, but the astronomy side is seeking oneself, trying to better understand themselves.
Guidance.
Guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely different. It's the same field, but it's branches off of the same tree trunk, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So that's more of growth, soul, like evolution, just growing your soul growth, all of that stuff, right? Just seeing how you can be better, or maybe a lot of crazy things have happened and you're wondering what the hell is kind of going on there, right? So sometimes there's too many malefics in like a malefic transit and stuff like that. That's just causing a lot of really bad or poor energy to kind of be manifesting around you. So job loss, an accident, all of the terrible things that people can kind of go through in their own lives, right?
Yeah.
So two completely different things.
Tell me how somebody would book to be a part of one of these Heaven on Earth seminars that you're about to do?
Yeah, so you would just go onto our website, and then you would essentially, there should be a little thing that says buy tickets, and you just basically click what city or town,
Right.
sorry,
So,
that you would want to be in.
Say, for example, I do that. I purchased to get a ticket, and you're going to be in Gander, is it?
Absolutely. Gander's coming up.
So when I go into that setting, I should expect to have possibly very personal stories about past loved ones shared openly within a small group.
Exactly. Group readings are not my favorite, but it's all about the growth too, and just seeing who needs, because you have to trust spirit enough to know that they're going to give you what you need as well, right? So it can be intimidating to some people in a large group, and that's primarily why I've never wanted to really do it too much or anything like that, right? It's a completely different setting. A lot of people are not as confident in kind of, oh, hi, this is me. Yeah, this resonates with me. There's more shadows kind of there, or more people are just shy and stuff like that, right? But at the same time, it's going to be a great experience. And I can't wait to see everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an option to book private sessions?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, for your tour while you're on the road. Say if somebody saw your show and they approach you and they said,
Absolutely.
how long are you going to be in each city or town? And is that a possibility? Just trying to think of viewer questions.
Yes,
so
exactly. So my husband actually said that many, many weeks ago. But yeah, no, you absolutely can. Just reach out to me and just let me know.
Okay.
All the emails there, the website's out there. So it should be pretty easy to kind of find.
Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna go home later and I'm gonna be like,
I know.
That.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have you back after your tour. I mean, we're a little bit more educated in terms of having a common language now, and I'd love to know how your tour is going for you. I hope you do extremely well with that.
Absolutely.
So, Kristen, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure.